glad you're here. Hi, Lan is with me today, and it's like, ugh, I just love sharing the morning with you.
All right, well, right back at you. And with everybody else who's lucky enough to join us now or later.
Yes, for sure. It's so fun because we really do get a lot of viewers after the show, all during the next couple of days. It's so fun to go back and check it out. So I appreciate all of you wherever you are and whenever you are watching the show. So I'm Delinda Lane, as y'all know, and this is Faith in Action, where we try to give you practical ways to live your life and different ideas on how to just make flow, make life flow just a little bit
Mhm.
better. And this morning we are talking about supercharging your goals. And I don't know if I could see your hands, if you could raise your hands out there. How many of you set some goals at the beginning of the year? And how many of you have done all of them? Like, no, right? People, we just don't. So here, this even takes it even further for you. How many of you said a word of intention, and when was the last time you looked at that word? And I have to agree. It's like when I asked that question this morning to myself, I was thinking about it. I haven't even looked at my card. I usually had it on my computer, and I guess one day I moved it, and I haven't looked at it since. So, like, terrible. So, Lynn, what do we do about that? Let's talk.
Hey, well, first off, I think it helps that sometimes definitions help so that we all know what it is that we're talking about. Because when we're talking about goals, and here's the best definition I found of a goal. So it's a result that you can attain, but it's going to require some intentional action and a lot of times cooperation with others to get there. So that's a goal.
I love that. That's pretty simple
Yeah,
and
it's so yeah. So so it's being intentional or acting in an intentional way and in a particular direction and asking for help when you need it. And I think a lot of times what we do is we confuse goals with three other things. One is wishes. We confuse goal with wishes. So a wish, a good definition of that, is a desire or a hope that something could happen.
ah,
Well, I wish I could lose weight. I wish I could, get another client this week. I wish, yeah, wishes. And then we have expectations. So an expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or will be the case in the future. So now we're talking about belief again. So there's hope, there's belief, and then there's resolution. So a resolution is a firm decision to do something. And as you've probably already figured out, these things are all in your head.
you
There's
said
nothing,
everything.
yeah, there's nothing about action in there except for goals. So you can wish something, you can expect something, you can make a resolution, but none of those things except goals have action in them. And you were talking about resolutions before, because I think a lot of people think of goals and resolutions in the same sentence, and they really are different now if you pay attention to those definitions. But I did a little research on New Year's resolutions because once again, we're at the halfway mark in the year. And a lot of people sat down and came up with their New Year's resolutions. And here are the statistics on resolutions. Yeah, first, 44% of people in America set New Year's resolutions. Yeah, we're going to do this year. And by the end of the first week, 27% of people have given up on them. Within 2 weeks, 36% of people have given up on them. Within 3 months or at the 3 month mark, 50% of people have given up on them.
Oh,
And at 6 months, that number is 54% for people have given up. And in general, about 9% of people in the States who make resolutions actually follow through on them and make them happen.
wow, wow. So
So
only
what that tells you,
9%.
yeah, is that resolutions in general don't work. In part because we don't, resolution, once again, it's a decision to do something, but it's not doing it. Goals involve doing it.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, the two biggest mistakes we make on goals is that they're, number one, they're unrealistic, or they're not even attainable.
Wow.
And the other is, second thing is, they're often too vague. Well, I want to lose weight this year. Well, how much weight do you want to lose? By when do you want to lose it? What are you going to do to lose? So it's all that kind of stuff. When we just make it vague, there's no way for us to measure the progress that we're making on it. And frankly, when we choose to do so, well, I'm going to earn $1 million this year. And what ends up happening is that when the goal is too big or unattainable, that actually disincentivizes us to do it. There's no way I can make that happen, so I'm not even going to try. So that's basic stuff on goals. And I think the best way to supercharge your goals is to get in the habit of making them and
Oh, duh.
achieving them. So don't start with huge things. Start with small things. And let me tell you a story about how goals routinely save my life. There was a time when I used to write corporate annual reports for companies that are public. Yeah, let me feel the waves of horror and pity. Yeah, it was a terrible job. And so one year I wrote the shareholders letter for a CEO whose name was John. And I sent him the draft, and we had scheduled a meeting on Monday to talk about it. Monday at 9 o'clock. And as I'm getting ready I'm pulling all my stuff together to go to that meeting, I get a call from his assistant, Debbie, who said, John, we need to move the meeting back from 9 this morning to 3 this afternoon because John went to the East Coast and wanted to be on his sailboat all weekend. And the weather was lousy. He never got out, and the weather continued to be lousy. So his flight was canceled yesterday. He's flying in this morning. And he's in a really bad mood, she said. And as a matter of fact, when he talked to me, he said he wanted to torch your annual report copy. There's a meeting I want to go to. And, it's 9 in the morning now, and I have all these hours to sweat it until 3 when I'm going to be with John. And so as I'm trying to not get all nervous and hung up on this meeting, I thought, what is it that I want to have happen? And I sat down and wrote out 3 goals for this meeting with John. And the first goal was I was going to find a way to help him let off steam so he didn't dump his lousy weekend on me, because that had nothing to do with me. Second, I was going to get constructive feedback from him, things I could actually use. So if he said, I don't like how this flows, well, there's no way for me to change that. So I would need him to be specific on what it was that he wanted. And third, this was going to be his first shareholders letter as a CEO. And I wanted to make sure that it actually had good content in it for shareholders, that he didn't pull out all of the good stuff and turn this into gruel. So I wrote those things down. And those of you who follow brain stuff know that literally sitting and writing something down longhand helps move it from your short term into your long term memory. So that was going to help me remember it. And not only did I do that, but I had it on the sheet of paper on the seat next to me as I drove to this meeting. And every time I hit a stoplight, I looked down and looked at it again. And when I got to the meeting, one of the things I'd done before I'd left was I have in my office a working blowtorch. And I brought it along with me. And so I get to the meeting, and John walks into this conference room with, honest to God, with the annual report copy like crunched up in his right hand and his big scowl on his face. And so I stood up and I said, John, I heard you wanted to torch the annual report copy. As your consultant, it is my job to give you what you want. So here's a blowtorch, torch away. And there were a couple of seconds I wasn't quite sure where this was going to go. But he looked at the blowtorch, he had this slow smile on his face. He put down the text and then took the blowtorch from me and began to explain to me about how blowtorches worked and that he had used one just like this on his first sailboat to take the varnish and the barnacles off the bottom of it. And he spent about 10 minutes diving into this. And by the time he was done, he finished and he said, nice blowtorch, handed it back to me. We sat down, looked at the text, and he didn't have that many changes. But if I had not set those goals, one of them being, I'm not going to let him dump his lousy weekend on me, and notice that blowtorch, and if I hadn't brought it with me, it would have been a terrible meeting. So just because I had that mindset, the blowtorch sat there forever. I wouldn't have brought it. That for me is the power of goals. Know what it is you want to create. So if you want to supercharge goals, start with small ones. Start with meetings, start with conversations with your family, that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be, this is what I want to achieve in the year. Get in the habit of setting smaller goals and achieving those. Because when that wonderful stuff, when as I was leaving that meeting, really relieved, it was a win for me.
Yeah.
And then it made me want to do more of the goal stuff. And I'm sure you've got stories like this too, Delinda.
Well, I just think that's so cool because the fact that you even had a blowtorch, that's another story, right? Like, okay, where did you have a blowtorch to grab to take to the meeting in the first place?
Well, the quick story behind that is for years I've said there's no way my desk will ever be clear because you can see it's a roll top and I get to pull the cover down so you can see how unclear you can't see how unclear that desk is. And for years I've said the only way my desk will ever be clear is if I torch it. And there have been times when my desk has been particularly messy that I picked up the blowtorch and I've made blowtorch noises pointing it at my desk.
Love that. Well, I love that you gave us the definitions and really to help us think differently about that. I think sometimes it's like, so I'm going to use, it's not a goal that I have right now, but it reminds me, of wanting to take a particular type of vacation. And so, I remember when we would talk to the kids about, well, for a couple of years, we would say, yeah, we're going to go to Hawaii. It's going to be so great. I wish it could be this year. So I'm wishing and hoping and thinking and praying. And that's not going to do, praying helps, but I'm just saying we still have to do something. So then it was when I was.
Which takes us back to God helps those who help themselves. Yes.
Absolutely. He's not going to just dump it in our lap in most cases. So finally, we decided to make a plan. So the kids and I and Bill. And so we, and it was also a way of helping them help me while I was working my business. So on particular things that they would do in the house to help me or spend the next 30 minutes being quiet while I was on the phone, they got rewarded for those kind of behaviors. So it went in a jar and we made a big poster. So we decided to be intentional. And so we even had a thermometer on it with how much money we thought it was going to be. And they got the connection between mom's going to work these hours to get the money to go on the vacation. And it really worked out. We wound up having our money before a good bit before the actual cruise itself. We had set a date for the cruise, but it's really amazing how that one I always say, it's how that one decision that you're going to make it happen, that you're going to start taking the steps, makes such a difference. And like you
Mhm.
say, it was just, a dollar here and a dollar there. And, we had all the formula figured out. So, but it took time to do that. We had to make that plan so that it would come. And then when we went, there's a saying that people will support what they help to create. And I think that is so powerful. And I think it's so true that you get other people in with you on your goal, especially if it's a family thing, then they feel like they're part of it. And they are, so it makes them want to be successful for themselves. In this case, helping to earn the money, helping mom while I was doing, because we like to just do it that way for that particular one instead of Bill always paying for everything. We decided to do it this way. And it was one of the best lessons we ever taught the kids, and it was fun. So, yeah, we did what you said. I didn't know that I was doing it, but
Mhm.
that's what we did.
Yeah, because you're right. You took it from the wish of we want to have a vacation in Hawaii, and moved it into an expectation of, we decided we're going to do it by this point. And then you turned it into a goal because you involved other people in doing specific things. And every time a dollar went into that jar, or every time the measurement went up with the amount of money that you had, it was reinforcement of, oh,
Yeah.
we're a little bit closer because you knew how to measure it. And it becomes, there's another line called activity begets activity. Once you start doing something, then it makes it easier to continue to do it. And the same thing is true with goals. I set goals every time I have an important conversation or an important meeting, personal or professional. I always pause and think, what is it that I want to have happen? And if that's the case, what are my goals for this? And just by moving that from my conscious into my subconscious mind, it also helps chew on this. And because your subconscious mind has, your conscious mind has access to, between 10 to 50 bits of information per second. But your subconscious mind has access to like 14 million bits of information per second. So your subconscious mind knows stuff you don't know. It knows a lot of stuff that you don't want to know, like how often your heart needs to beat in order to keep you alive. So that can stay unconscious. But when you set a goal, it sends it down into your subconscious mind, which starts chewing on it and trying to figure out ways for you to get there. And I say, yeah, use your entire brain to get what you want, because it takes no more effort to send this down to your subconscious mind and have it pop up with ideas than if you sat there and tried to think hard and make everything conscious. So set a goal, get your subconscious mind working for you. The only thing that I ask you to be aware of is that your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a positive goal and a negative goal. Because if you're sitting there before that meeting thinking, they're never going to agree to that. Well, guess what? Your subconscious mind hears they're never going to agree to that. And it will find ways for you to shoot yourself in the foot. So sending positive messages down to your subconscious mind to help you get more of what you want also is another way to supercharge your goals.
I love that. I love that. And you can take it while you were talking, I was thinking about networking because so often in networking, just in talking to lots of other, women and stuff, uh, they tend to just get up, get dressed, and go. Well, what do you want to accomplish? I mean, you really need an intention. Have a goal for this meeting. I want to meet three people, depending how big the group is or whatever. But mine is usually three. I want to meet three. I want to engage with at least three people that I can follow up and have coffee with or do a one-on-one in some way. Or I
Mhm.
want to, because if you just go in there and you think you're going to sell $1,000 a big package of something, that's not going to happen. That's not even
Mhm.
why networking is there. But so often people will go into it thinking that that's their sales platform, that they're going to sell something. Well, no, it's about building relationships. So think ahead of time. So part of that And a lot of people get really nervous, especially if it's in the beginning of them, learning about networking. I remember that I didn't know what I was doing. I made some really bad mistakes of what I
Well,
thought it
yeah,
was.
yeah. Welcome to being human. We all do.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, I hate to think of those first few weeks. It didn't take me long, but then the first couple months I learned a lot. But also, plan ahead. What are you going to say? You know that there's going to be a 30-second or a 1 minute that you have to share what you do. So what are you going to do? Just stand up and ad lib it? Not the best result, So
Mhm.
look at who's going to be there. What is that particular audience of that networking? And what is it that you want them to know? What's the one thing when you leave you want them to know? I'd say one is you want them to know who you are. So you want them to want you. So if you think about it, you can practice your 1 minute in the car while you're driving. And then you want to meet these three people and you want to know more about them than tell them about you. Because when you're learning about them, you're building the relationship and then they do want to get back with you. So it really is. That also is setting a goal because you're making a plan, right, Len, and being
Mhm.
intentional about it. And it does involve other people. So I love that you broke that down like that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny because it's true. When I first started networking, I thought, like most, new networkers think, my goal is to find a client here. And yeah, and how impossible is that? So you go in, you come out, you don't find a client, and you feel like you've wasted your time.
Yeah.
And it's true, like you, over the years, I altered what my goals were. And my goals now for most networking meetings are I want to have at least three interesting conversations and walk away with the name of one person I want to talk to again. There's nothing in there about business. It is about being present with other people. And to leverage a point that you made, it's the asking good questions of other people and being interested in what they have to say and asking them to talk first. In part because when it's because if you're a good listener, sooner or later, most people will notice you've been listening really well and they want to reciprocate. It's actually called the rule of reciprocity. So after you've listened well, they'll say, I've been talking a lot, so tell me more about what you do. And at that moment, they are actually interested in what you do because you've listened so well to them, which means that if I've listened well and the person I'm speaking with happens to be an engineer, I know engineers like details. They like to know how things work. So instead of giving them the standard answer to what it is that you do, I tailor it to the person I'm with. And any stories I use to explain what it is that I do are ones that will appeal to an engineer versus a doctor or versus the CEO of a manufacturing company. And then what you have to say makes more sense to that person because you listened first, you know more about who they are, and then you can speak their language.
I love that. And that is just, I'd love because that's so true and how that works. And most everybody likes to talk about themselves. So Alicia used to get so nervous when she would go somewhere where she didn't know anybody, and it was really hard for her. She's not as extroverted as I am, and so I said, "Well, honey, I have one idea that will really help you. Just ask them about themselves and they'll just keep talking and you don't have to say anything."
Mhm.
And, so it just it makes it so easy when you go into a place. And then if you'll really care, as you said, if you really will listen and pay attention and care about what they're saying instead of thinking, what am I going to say next, what am I going to say next, then and so few people do that they really will want to have more conversation with you, and that is the goal. You want to
Mhm.
get back together and be memorable and have, start building those relationships because people will, they ultimately they're only going to spend their money with people they know, like, and trust. And they
Mhm.
can't know you or like you or trust you if you just, the first thing you do want to try to sell them something. Nobody wants to be sold. They don't
Mhm.
mind buying, but they don't want to be sold.
Mhm. Yeah, and to piggyback on that, there are a couple of different types of listening. And the first one is the most common. It's listening, basically it's listening to understand. Um, Paying attention to, actually, no, I'm sorry, listening to respond. So you're listening to what somebody's saying and you're thinking about what you're going to say when that person stops talking. So yes, you're paying attention, but it's like half paying attention. You're half listening, half thinking about what it is that you're going to say. And part of it is, yeah, you're trying to connect, but you're still only listening halfway. The next kind of listening, and the kind that is the best, is listening for understanding and empathy. So not only are you listening to that person's words, you're also looking at their body language. You're noticing their voice tone and quality. Are they nervous? Are they excited? You're seeing the whole person, and that takes concentration. And you've heard people talk about folks they've met, and they come away and saying, I felt like I was the only person in the room. This person was giving me her full attention, and it made me feel really special. And it's true. Research shows that the people who listen more than they speak are usually, rated much more fascinating than the people who talk a lot. So I'm not particularly fascinating today, but that's because I can't hear what you're thinking out there. So, but truly listening for understanding and empathy, giving that person your full attention makes them feel special and makes them want to talk with you again. And as Delinda said, it fosters that know, like, and trust atmosphere, which is why you're there in a networking experience anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've touched on a number of things this morning, and we're already at the top of the hour. It's like, oh my gosh, it goes so fast. So a couple of things that you brought up is taking being intentional. You gave us kind of the roadmap for making a goal, which I love. Take it in small steps. Just because half of the year's over and you're thinking, oh, I really wanted to do this by this year. Well, don't shame yourself into how bad you've been. Just say, okay, that time's over. You can't change it. What can I do? What steps can I take now? What small steps to continue to move forward? And in most cases, it's not the end of the world if you don't make it by December 31st. If you accomplish it by January 31st or whatever, that's still accomplishing the goal that you wanted. So, don't beat yourself up. Celebrate, where you are, and celebrate that you're going to just start taking small steps now so you can actually get it accomplished. So, Lynn, what last words of wisdom would you like to give us this morning?
Well, if you do nothing else, do this. Every day, set at least one small goal for yourself. Maybe it's a goal for a conversation. Maybe it's a goal for what it is that you're saying to yourself about yourself. And whatever. So it's a small goal. So get into the habit of setting goals. And it's not enough to achieve those goals. Celebrate them, because so many times we get, oh, I'm going to get this done, and you get it done, and then you move on to the next thing, and you don't give yourself that yay, aha, good you moment, which releases all kinds of wonderful hormones in your brain, and and gives you that high, makes you want to keep doing it. So don't just set the goals and achieve them, but celebrate them.
Yes.
And if you're struggling with goals, the other great thing that Delinda and I were talking about before you joined us is tell somebody your goal. Share your goals with other people and report back to them on the progress that you're making, and invite them to celebrate with you too. Because one of the other ways to supercharge your goals is to have an accountability partner.
Yeah.
So find another person who really is your cheerleader. And Delinda and I talk about how we are each other's cheerleaders. And we set goals, and there are times when, yep, I met something and I moved on to the next thing. And Delinda will stop me and she'll say, congratulations, that was really a great thing that you did. And I just would have whizzed right past it. So find people who can not only help you be accountable, but who can help you celebrate.
That is great advice. Thank you so much. So set a goal, as Lynn said, and then think of what your one next step is, not the next 10, the next one. And I love that you say bring somebody into your world, one person to share that with. And it has been a blessing for us over our 10 or 12 years that we've been doing that for each other. So find
Mhm.
your person to do that with. So love that you're here, you guys. Thank you so much. And I want to invite you to send me, however you want to send it. Most of you all know how to get a hold of me. Through Facebook on the Messenger. You've got my phone number that's out on my website everywhere. I am developing a new something that I want to share with y'all every week, just a special little gift that I want to give to you. If you'll send me your email so I can send it, because it's not something that I can send. Most of you, I don't even have your phone numbers anyway. So if you would send me your email, I'm going to have a special little something that I'm creating. I'm in the process of creating. It ought to be ready in about a week or two. So if you will do that for me and send me your email, then you can get a little gift in your inbox. All right. Remember, everybody, that life is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice. So choose wisely, set a goal, and then take action towards it this week. All right. Take care, and we will see you next week. Bye, Lynn. Thanks for being here today.
Always fun.
It is always fun. I love it.